In the studio with us, filling in for the great Malabite, Manuel Fene, to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world. Well, three of us will take some of the papers, but Tundu MK Abiola will start. Tundu, please, do us the honor.
Such big shoes to fill. So we'll start with this day, Mr. Fene's newspaper of records, and Nigeria, as according to Mr. Fene. Federal government bows to Labour, shelves plan to end fuel subsidy from July. Silver, Buhari against subsidy removal. Lawan appeals to NLC TUC to cancel protest. Postponement sends wrong signals to foreign investors, all marketers warn. APC, removal will heighten inflation, cause undue hardship. Labour petitions state governors over proposed hike in petrol price. We discussed that earlier, didn't we, gentlemen? And also on the front cover of this day, above the masthead, marginal fields. NUPRC invites reserve bidders after winners fail to pay within stipulated time. LCCI hails CBN's move to halt over-invoicing. Military seizes power in Burkina Faso, whereabouts of president unknown. Despite COVID-19, over 14.2 million passengers traveled by air in 2021. Ganduje, I'll sign death sentence of Hanifa's killers with speed if.
Right.
You still have you have Punch newspaper?
Yeah,
I
Punch
do.
newspaper.
So
Okay.
in on the cover of the Punch, we have Labour set for protest. Federal government suspends subsidy removal. NBA warns government. No going back on protests. We observe deceit and new twist, says Labour. Remove suicidal now. Oh, they meant subsidy. This is a typo. They wrote suicidal. Federal government action political for 2023 election. NBA. Subsidy removal timing wrong, says Minister. Lawan begs unions. And above the masthead, federal government probes online banks over breach of customers' data privacy. Autogas, federal government to convert 200,000 vehicles, plans 580 refueling centers. Court issues warrants for Desiani's arrest over failed extradition. Federal government local currency debts to hit 44 trillion naira in 2022, says report.
All right, so I wanted to comment on, I think it's top page of this day newspaper, the story about the coup in Burkina Faso. And it is quite very jarring that Africa has gone back to, this era of coups. Prior to this time, from about, I think the first coup happened on the African continent around the early 50s to 1990, we had a total of over 100 coups. So if you were to prorate it, it was going to be like 2 coups in every African nation. Some had probably more. And the push in the 90s up to the 2000s was for more partnership across African nations. And in the early 2000s, with more partnership platforms like NEPAD and the likes, somebody will have thought that, we could balance things out democratically in almost all those nations and not go back to the era of coups. But this is very startling because in the space of a year, we've had coups in 3 countries: Mali, Guinea, and now Burkina Faso. And across these 3 countries, there's a particular thread. The thread is insecurity caused by insurgencies and terrorists.
Yeah.
Across these 3 countries, their borderlines have a lot of insurgents and terrorists that are causing mayhem. The argument by Sanogo, the coup leader in Burkina Faso, was the fact that the government has not been able to clamp down on the terrorists that are operating from the northern part of Burkina Faso and, some other parts, the eastern part of Burkina Faso. And that has always been his argument. And the fact that President Kabore has not done a lot as regards, addressing the poverty problem in the country. Some people interviewed, in the cities in Burkina Faso, in Ouagadougou, they talked about the fact that even the former president, Blaise Compaoré, his tenure was a lot better as regards, insecurity and poverty. He managed it better, but now that's not the case. And there was a prior protest. So when you look at the thread, there's always a prior protest. There was a prior protest, just like in the case of Mali with Tumbabaye, and there was in Guinea with Tumbabaye, there was a prior protest, and after the protest on Sunday, there were gunshots being heard in military barracks, and the next day, there was martial music being played, and all of a sudden, Sanogo and his team came in and said they are taking over government. If you look at the same case, that was almost the same case in Guinea. Problems, insurgents across board, nothing was being done about it. The president was overreaching, I should say. He had forced himself on the people in a third-term bid, finally gotten into power. They felt disgruntled. The people went on the street to support the military. That's the thread number 2. The same case with Assimi Goïta. The reaction, for the African, for ECOWAS in all of this, a lot of people will argue has always just been tempered, it's just a slap in the wrist. It was after a while that ECOWAS just put in, trade restrictions and sanctions against these two countries. Some people argue that ECOWAS should do more. Nigeria has condemned the coup. We should all condemn the coup because it's a bad omen for the West African sub-region. In the space of 1 year, we've had 3 different coups. And this is giving impetus to people across the sub-region. And that's why we need to look inward to solve our insecurity challenges. And we need to be serious with ourselves.
Okay, it's unfortunate that at a time we should be talking about democratic consolidation in Africa, we're having this reversal, particularly in West Africa, where in the last few seasons we've had 3 different coups: Mali, Guinea, and now Burkina Faso. In the case of Mali and Guinea, ECOWAS, yes, suspended both governments from membership of ECOWAS and also threatened to impose sanctions. But the Malians have said, well, they don't give a damn, they don't care anything about whatever ECOWAS decides. And that in itself is most unfortunate because we know that the major challenge of democratic consolidation is to make sure, that the democratic project in Africa, not just in West Africa, survives. So, but what is the root of it? The lack of good governance, corruption, insecurity in many of these countries. And at a point we thought that Africa had moved beyond the past, but unfortunately that is not the case. Now the latest is Burkina Faso, the land of the people of integrity, as the country is otherwise called, a population of 21 million people. Now, they've had a coup. This is the 8th one. President Kabore, who took over in 2015 through election, couldn't make much difference. Yes, on Saturday there were protests. On Sunday, the soldiers had already surrounded, the military camps and key government locations. And the military and the government of Burkina Faso said, oh, there was nothing to worry about. But eventually, what we're confronted with is a coup. The whereabouts of the president remain unknown. And I think that ECOWAS should weigh in strongly because whatever may be the justification, maybe bad governance or poverty or insecurity, the international rule is that forceful military takeover is an aberration. And it's a violation of the people's right to choose. In 2015, the people of Burkina Faso, frustrated with Campari, who eventually fled into exile, decided to vote in President Kabore. If he's not performing, if the people are aggrieved, the best way to ensure a transition or a change of governance in Burkina Faso is through the instrumentality of the ballot box, not Lieutenant Colonel Sandogo Damba, taking a decision on the people of Burkina Faso. And I think that the international community, beyond ECOWAS and the African Union, should also take an interest in the matter and, put pressure on these, soldiers of fortune who are trying to take Burkina Faso back to the past. Yes, it's an important. But Rufai, you have 2 newspapers there with you.
Okay. So we have a couple of other very important stories, like you said, Dr. Abati. Hanifa, I will sign death warrants of killer. That's what Ganduje is saying. I align myself with Sheikh Guy on public execution. Aisha Buhari. Kano government revokes private school licenses. That's a story coming out of Kano on the Daily Trust in reaction to the death of the 5-year-old. FG backtracks and retain fuel subsidy. 2022 budget amendment to cover payment beyond June. Build refineries as permanent solutions, expert tell government. Shelf protest, Lawan tells Labour. This is another very striking story. Nigeria has the world's highest number of out-of-school children. UNICEF is crying. Explosion rocks church in Taraba. How rice, beans, tomato jacked up December inflation figures. FG backpedals, suspends removal, now on the Daily Independent, suspends removal of Fuel subsidy. Cites heightened inflation. Says removal will worsen citizens' situation. Lawan urges Labour to shelve planned protests. Say plan unnecessary. And a couple of other stories here. Saying regulation, low purchasing power slows telecom subscriber growth. Low purchasing power. That shows you that a lot is happening as regards the economy. Electoral Act Amendment Bill. Reps to harmonize with Senate today on consensus option. Protesters at PDP APC Secretariat demand zoning presidency to the south. That's on the Daily Independent. And I think we're taking this day before?
Yeah, we have.
Newspaper of record. So,
Yes, but there was a story in this day that I thought deserves further attention. And it says, despite COVID-19, over 14.2 million passengers traveled by air in 2021. And that's based on data provided by the Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority. Now, the report says that the number of passengers on inbound domestic flights were about 5.9 million, while outbound domestic flights were 6.72 million, making a total of 12.50 million. And then international flights carried over 1 million passengers. Outbound international flights conveyed 1.12884, making a total of 279 million. So domestically and internationally, 14.2 passengers traveled inside Nigeria. And this is an indication perhaps of the fact that Nigerians tend to move around a lot. Even despite COVID, that didn't disturb the movement of persons. But the explanation that is given is that after that lockdown that Nigeria had, people were very anxious to get moving, to get back to their businesses, to get their lives back. But there is also part of that data revealed that flight delays from January to December 2021 alone indicated that domestic airlines operating in Nigeria recorded 41,398 cases of delayed flights. And the report gives the breakdown. And that's something that will resonate with many Nigerians who go to the airport. Your flight is scheduled to be 8 a.m., 8 a.m. But after getting to the airport, you keep getting these annoying, messages, emails from the airline saying, due to operational reasons. Nobody ever explains what these operational reasons are. You are kept there, and the service, the flight attendants, the service persons, they have no idea about customer service. They are usually very rude, and they just keep you there waiting endlessly. There have been cases of persons whose flights were delayed from morning till almost midnight. And there have been fisticuffs in some of our airports because people just get frustrated. How can you schedule a flight for 8 a.m. and then people don't move until evening? So it's not enough for the civil aviation authorities to give this report. What are they going to do with the data?
Yes.
In terms of ensuring effective, efficient customer service delivery, in terms of ensuring that the various airlines, whether local or international, meet international aviation requirements. And if we go further into this, I see many adverts celebrating Senator Ibikunle Amosun. He's 64 today.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, so we wish him happy birthday.
Okay.
And the reason for that is understandable.
Okay. Okay. I wanted to, enunciate on this story that says Nigeria has the world's highest out-of-school children, and that's what UNICEF is saying. UNICEF pegged the figure about 10 million. You see, the calculation of out-of-school children has been a very, very, nebulous calculation. But in all fairness, a lot of people have argued it's about 13.5 or 14 million. I think it's way more than that. I think we've not captured that data enough, and it's a ticking time bomb. But for the sake of this conversation, I'll narrow it down to the 10 million UNICEF talked about. For the fact that you've got 10 million out-of-school children, it is a ticking time bomb for a population where you have high level of insecurity and you have high level of civil strife across board. What it shows is that those 10 million people will never get a chance to get on the school ladder. And once they don't get on the school ladder, they're as good as hopeless. There is no social system that will buffer them and they'll help them. And let's not forget, apart from this, primary school completion rate has dropped in this country. Less than 50% of those that start primary school complete primary school. And once you don't have primary school and secondary school, then you don't have a population. So I think government should focus on primary school education, secondary school education. Then people can make up their mind if they are going to go into apprenticeship and the likes. But those are two very important things. And we need to increase the number of children staying in school. Some will have argued that, oh, the school feeding program should be able to keep children in school.
That was the point of it.
But the question is, there's massive insecurity precipitating this. So you're wondering, what's the primary school enrollment rate? What are school object rates? I think these are factors we should talk about, because 10 million people out of school is another 10 million Belu 2Gs waiting to happen.
And we're very quickly, Vanguard newspaper, same story about subsidy removal. Federal government Bokus says no removal of petrol subsidy now. We've discussed that at length. But there is an interesting story also in Vanguard. NAFDAC bans alcohol in sachets, glass bottles below 200 milliliters. Well, I hope that NAFDAC will also be able to enforce that.
Yes.
Because you go to many of our, what do they call them, bus stations and garages, motor parks, all these small, alcoholic packages and, small packages contribute to drunk driving on the streets, have implications for road safety and also public health. Maybe apart from stopping the approval for the manufacturers, there must also be some kind of task force that monitors these garages. Because when you ban these drinks officially, there could be an underground network, that produces alternatives. Well, I think that's where we'll cut it off. And then on the front page of New Telegraph, the same story. Federal government succumbs to NLC TUC, retains fuel subsidy. And then, of course, analysts are saying the Monetary Policy Committee, that is meeting in Abuja, may raise interest rates. And JAMB is to commence the UTME February 12. Fixes UTME direct entry registration for April 20 to 30. Okay? I think that's about all with the newspaper reviews.